Okay, so let's talk about area of parallelogram. Parallelogram looks like this. And if I unslanted those sides, what shape would I have? A rectangle. This is a very non-technical way to talk about this, okay? Really, a parallelogram, you can find the area just like you find the area of a rectangle. Except in a rectangle, don't draw this, but in a rectangle, you can just use the sides, length and width, because the sides automatically make a right angle, right? Remember with triangles, you always have to have a right angle? You guys who are folding all the paper, put it away. Okay? In a rectangle, the length and width make that right angle for you, for base times height. In a parallelogram, you have to have a right angle, and a parallelogram doesn't always have right angles. So, you're still going to do base times height, and this is the base, but the height has to be either inside or outside at a right angle, just like with a triangle. Okay? So your formula you should be writing down for parallelogram is area equals base times height. Oh, that should look less like a decimal point. This is your base. This is your height, because it makes a right angle. Your formula is area equals base times height, but you just want to be careful with a parallelogram that you're not trying to use one of the slanted sides as the height. With a rectangle, you can use the sides because it makes a right angle for you, but with a parallelogram, you have to have that right angle somewhere else. Does that make sense? That you're using the same process that you would for a rectangle, but just your height is different? Okay, so now let's look at trapezoids, because trapezoids are a little different. The formula for trapezoids is a little complicated, but I want you to see where it comes from, and that's going to help you remember it. Okay? I'm going to draw myself a trapezoid here. Let's see. Okay. And let's suppose I took that same trapezoid, and let's see if this will let me do this. I haven't played around with all this stuff quite yet. Okay? Got that same trapezoid now. And can I rotate it? Wish it would let me. No, it's not going to let me do it.
If you put your fingers on both sides and spin it with the dot.
Oh. Nicely done. I could take that same trapezoid, flip it over, and lay it right there. Okay, and that's supposed to line up nicely, but I think I actually changed the size when I did that. And now what shape do I have? A parallelogram, right? I have one giant parallelogram now. Okay. Leave me alone. You can see it, right? You can see what I'm trying to show you without me being neurotic about straight lines. Okay. If I wanted the area of this parallelogram, I would take this entire base, multiply it by this height, and that would give me the area of the whole shape I have outlined in red, right? Except, don't write this yet, except I didn't want the area of two trapezoids, did I?
No.
I just wanted one. So how do I get rid of this one?
Divided by 1/2.
Yeah, divide it by 2. Just like with a triangle. You had a rectangle, you cut it in half, it made you a triangle. So what I'm going to do, oh, by the way, I forgot one thing that I wanted to mention about this. The length of this base, this whole base down here, do you see that it's the same as this base from the trapezoid plus this base?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Okay? Like that original trapezoid, if I named this base 1 and this base 2, because remember in a trapezoid the bases are the two parallel sides. Okay? So this big base is really equal to the two bases added together, because I took the one and flipped it over and laid it next to it. So what I really did was the big base times the height divided, don't write this down yet. Big base times the height divided by 2. And the big base is equal to base 1 plus base 2. Okay? So now look at my formula. Formula for area of a trapezoid. This you can write down. Area equals 1/2 height times base 1 plus base 2. Conceptualize that. Think about that for a minute. What I'm really saying is to get area of a trapezoid, I'm adding the two bases together because that's like laying two trapezoids next to each other and making a parallelogram. I'm adding the two bases together and multiplying by the height and then cutting that in half because I don't want this second parallelogram. Does that make sense? So that's your formula for area of a trapezoid. And I would write this down somewhere. Well, yeah, write this down maybe next to the formula that H stands for height. And B1 and B2 stand for the bases, which are the parallel sides. Well, then you would go with whatever ones don't have the height. Like, if both sides were parallel, it would be a parallelogram. And so if you have these two parallel with a height in between, those are the two you would treat as your bases. If the height was running this way, then you would treat these two as your bases. Does that make sense? Okay. And so for your picture, if you didn't already draw all of this nonsense, draw yourself a trapezoid. Label base 1 and base 2, and then your height should be up and down at a right angle, just like before. So in all of our area formulas, height and base have to make a right angle. Okay? That's what I would do for your picture. I would just draw a trapezoid and label those three pieces. Okay, base 1, base 2, and the height. If you drew all of this, that's fine, as long as it's going to make sense to you later. Okay. I did all of that to show you where the formula comes from. Okay. Okay, now time for paper flipping. Darnell, you didn't think you would need that formula that we just wrote down? You didn't think you needed to write down that formula? Okay. Okay. This is pretty straightforward. Find the area of the trapezoid. Area of a trapezoid, again, is that formula. 1/2 height times base 1 plus base 2. Which number over here is my height? Bryce? Which one is the height? Sorry, I thought you had your hand up. Okay. Yeah, the 8 is the height because it makes a right angle with the bases. And then these two are my base 1 and base 2. Do you think it matters which one I call base 1 and which one I call base 2?
No.
Not a bit. Okay? It's just the two different bases. The only reason there's two different ones is because they're different lengths in a trapezoid. Okay? So I would say 1/2 times 8 times 5 plus 13. And remember, since that's in parentheses, that means I have to add them together first. Okay? So 5 plus 13 is 18, and 1/2 times 8 is 4. So 4 times 18 is 72. So my area is 72 square units. When you what? When you typed it in, or did you do it in your head? Okay, 72. Good? Okay, area of the parallelogram. Parallelogram works just like a rectangle. And in this one, you only need one base because the two bases are the same. Which number am I using for my base?
15?
15? Why? Because it's at the bottom?
No, because it's parallel to the other side.
Okay, but the 10 and the 10 are parallel. Kyle?
No, but the 8.
Okay, yeah, because that's where my right angle is. So I want to make sure for my base and my height, I'm using the two that make the right angle. Okay, so this would just be 8 times 15. Do I need the 10 at all? Nope. I would if it asked me for perimeter, but it didn't. 80 and 40 is 120. Good? Okay. Oh, an isosceles trapezoid has an area of 240 square feet and a height of 8 feet. Give two combinations for the bases. So this is, yeah, that would work. Well, that's going to get you started at least. Base 1, base 2. I know my height is 8, and I know my overall area is 240. Okay, so let's plug this into the formula. The formula says this, 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. So I'm going to say 240 equals 1/2 times 8. Everyone see where I'm getting this from? Okay, half of 8 is 4. So now this really says 240 equals 4 times B1 plus B2. How do I get rid of that 4? Divide by the 4. And I get base 1 plus base 2 equal to 60. What does that mean for my problem?
B1, B2 equals 30.
Okay, they could. That's one combination, right? So I could have base 1 and base 2 both equal to 30. Could it? Does that work in a trapezoid? What Bryce just gave me was a trapezoid where the two bases are equal. What's that called, if the two bases are equal? Only if it was a right angle, but it's definitely a parallelogram, right? Especially if it's an isosceles trapezoid, so the other two sides are equal as well. You've got two sides equal and two sides equal. That would be a parallelogram. Okay? But do they have to be equal in a trapezoid? No. So would 59 and 1 work?
Yeah.
Sure. You could have base 1 be 59 and base 2 be 1. Okay? What this is saying right here, the B1 plus B2 equals 60, I have no way of figuring out what base 1 and base 2 actually are, but I know whatever they are, they better add up to 60 to get that area correct. So that 59 and 1, that would look like this. Okay, where this height was 8, this was 1, and this was 59. But it would work. No, you don't have to. I'm just showing you kind of the difference in what those bases do to the trapezoid. But your height could stay constant. Questions on that? I think we have one more to do. Okay, what do you think we're going to have to do with all those coordinates? Let's graph them. -4, 3. 4, 3. 3, 2. On your paper, make those -2s.
Oh, you screwed up the problem.
I did. Just because otherwise it's going to be really, really skinny, really close. Yeah. So if you already did it with the other numbers, that's okay. And -5. I just wanted you to be able to see from my drawing what I was doing. Okay, there's my parallelogram, if I treated those as -2s. So my base is one of these sides. That's what I would use for my base. I guess I could use these slanted sides, but it would be harder to figure out what their length was. 2, 3, 4. I get a length of 8. Do you agree with me? Yeah, from -4 up to 4. Or from 3 to -5. Either way, you're going to get 8. Where do I count for my height?
From where it has the right angle.
Okay, so straight up and down. Does it matter if I go here or here or here? Are those all going to be the same? Yeah, as long as you're going from the bottom to the top at a right angle. 5. So the way this is written, I would say my area is 8 times 5, which is 40 square units. If you had done it with the other one, your height would have been 1, so it should have ended up at 8 square units. Does that make sense? Okay.